Hello, this video is to discuss how Newton's first law was discovered. And the strange thing is, although we call it Newton's first law, the research was done by Galileo nearly 100 years earlier. And what Galileo was interested in was how objects roll up ramps. So he had an experimental setup, kind of like I have here. I have a ramp. I'm going to drop these two brass cylinders down it. They're going to roll up these two other ramps. And one of them is short and steep. The other one is long and shallow. The reason Galileo was looking at different ramps was by changing the steepness, he was actually changing how much of the force of gravity was acting on the motion. The more horizontal, back, forth the motion is, the less the force of gravity is going to have an effect on it. Because gravity is an up-down vertical force. So by making the ramp short and steep, you had more of the gravity force acting. By making it long and shallow, it's kind of like you diluted gravity. Galileo in the 1500s didn't have the ability to go to space or anything, so this was the only way he could really increase or decrease the effect of gravity. So what we'll do, you'll see this from a couple different angles. You'll see these two cylinders roll up. One from the perspective you have now, and once from a camera that's over here. And then after this whole video is over, you'll see a screenshot from Tracker, so you can see precisely where the two stopped. So let's do the experiment. Okay. What I hope you got out of that was that no matter whether you are on the short, steep ramp or the long, shallow ramp, the two went to the same height. This one actually covered a lot less horizontal distance than the other one, but they stopped at the same height. Now that's a really important idea that we'll revisit later in the year when we talk about energy. But for now, I want to focus on what interested Galileo. Basically, he noticed that this cylinder, the hypotenuse of this ramp is much shorter than the hypotenuse of this ramp. So although they went to the same height, the shallow ramp, it rolled a lot longer. So Galileo was doing this experiment. He noticed that the shallower he made the ramp, the less the force of gravity, the thing rolled longer and longer and longer. And he basically started to think about, what would happen if I made it flat, horizontal? Well, the cylinder doesn't stop till it gets to the appropriate height, but if it was totally horizontal, it would never get to that height. And Galileo had the insight, oh, it should roll forever. And that's what gave him the idea that objects in motion stay in motion unless they're acted on by an outside force. If gravity wasn't there to slow it down, it should just keep going forever. Now, we don't see that in the real world because the frictional forces are actually fairly substantial. It does stop after a while. But that was the insight that in an ideal world, the thing would never stop if it was rolling horizontally. And that's what gave us what we call Newton's first law. So Newton's first law, objects in motion stay in motion unless acted on by an outside force. Objects at rest stay at rest unless acted on by an outside force.